Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about 5 simple steps to create inner balance in your life. And I am going to say they seem simple, they are simple. We just have to be mindful about how we apply them. So, once we get through our 5 simple steps, then we're going to do a little bit of Reiki as part of just helping things shift in our body or release whatever we need to let go of so we can experience that inner peace, that inner balance a little bit more, that we can embody it. So, if we haven't met, I'm Mary from Rivers Journey Wellness. I'm a holistic therapist for over 25 years, and I've started incorporating more of the work that has helped me in my personal life. Not that therapy hasn't been helpful, but I've also done a lot of energy work. I'm a Usui Reiki master, teacher, and practitioner. I also have started my shamanic practitioner training, and I like to incorporate some of those elements, the really earth based, nature based elements, into all of the work that I do. So these are steps that I apply in my life, and I encourage my clients to apply them in theirs. So if you've been wondering, why does things feel so wonky for me? Why can't I get my footing or traction again? It could be that you're just feeling off balance and you need a practice. You need some steps to rebalance you. This is one of those things, like all practices, we have to be consistent, which I know for humans is a huge struggle. We have to be consistent, but when we're not, when we're feeling depleted or overwhelmed or life gets in the way, at least we can have the awareness that things are starting to shift and not feeling like they're in balance. And then we can apply these strategies again. So if you have any questions, if anything comes up that you want a little bit more information on, feel free to put it into the chat. I'm going to start like I start always, with a little bit of sage, just a tiny bit. This helps us to not only cleanse and clear anything that's come up for us. I'm recording this on a Friday, so sometimes it can be a long week, right? And so just releasing anything that has come up for us, just a tiny bit of sage. I have a smoke detector above me, so I do not want to set it off. I've done that before, which is sort of funny. It was sort of a wake up call. It was actually during another live event with my clients, and it was a candle. I had multiple candles going, and it was just what was ever coming off of the candle. So don't want to alert or alarm you. So hopefully you've been thinking about, how can I get myself back into balance? This has been a struggling time, I know, for a lot of people. And just knowing things that I've done in the past, or things that I've worked on for myself, my past strategy, my past tools, maybe they're not working. Maybe it's time to refresh them. Maybe it's things that you probably or might already know, maybe have applied in your life before, but it seems like for some reason, I just need that refresher. I just need to reconnect to that again. And that's totally fine. So we're just going to make some space for that today. And like I said, after we go over the tips, then we're going to do a little bit of Reiki, or at least you get to experience a little bit of the distance Reiki. So again, if you have any questions, comments, put them into the chat. I'd love to hear from you. If you're viewing this later, I know I'm doing this, I record this during the daytime, so some people are working. If you have any questions or comments, put them into the comments later on. I read those comments and I will get back to you. So you're probably thinking, what are going to be these strategies? Haven't I heard them before? Maybe, I don't know. It kind of depends on the work that you've done in your own life. But for me, I find these to be really helpful. They're good reminders when I feel off balance, or I feel like I'm starting to struggle. I feel stressed or overwhelmed. These are the 5 areas that I typically go back to. It's either a combination of one and many, or just one, but it feels like it's one of these areas that I'm really needing support in. And again, it's about bringing that awareness to it. What can I do? And I know this is sometimes a struggle to hear somebody's suggestions or hear some advice, even if it's something that's research based or something that has been practically applied with other people and they have been successful. I know there's a resistance oftentimes of like, I can do it on my own, or I want to create my own plan, which you're obviously more than welcome to do. But I will say, if you could create that sense of inner balance on your own and have not been able to, that's where you need to start listening to these new tools and strategies, because if you could create it, you would have already. But if it feels like no, there's something holding me back, or there's something that, I haven't been able to sustain it, or maybe I've resisted it, maybe other people in my life, I've been met with some resistance from other people. We can create change in our life. We absolutely can create change independently on our own, self directed and self supported. I know it has happened for me. I've seen it happen in other people. I've heard tons of strangers, right? Stories online, stories in the newspaper, books, whatever, of people creating change in their life, finding that balance for themselves. And I know we can do it. There are moments that we might have a little bit of clarity or just a new awareness. We might feel really focused, just feel like we have a ton of energy to create that positive change, to seek out that balance that we're looking for, right? We're in those moments. It's like we're superhuman. We can do it. We can take this on. We have grit and tenacity. We're able to move forward. But there's also moments where we just can't, especially when it's something that touches on maybe our deepest struggle, something that could be a wounding for us, when we can't seem to find the root or get to the solution. It's hard to activate our inner warrior. We're not able to have that clarity or have that perspective, and it just feels like the negative thoughts or the limiting beliefs are piling on and just making us feel so heavy, so ungrounded, but just lacking in that superhuman power, of just feeling good in our skin. So I want to give you some, to me, there's simple steps for creating inner balance. Lots of people have various perspectives on this. This is mine. So just know that other people might have other strategies. Totally fine. You have to pick and choose what works for you. These are the ones that I typically talk about. And with finding balance, so I call it sacred balance. For me, I'm in a stage in my life where, when I'm applying my intention to something, focusing my attention on something and honoring that process, it becomes sacred. And so I seek not just inner balance or balance, but sacred balance. And with that sacred balance, there's really three buckets: planning, action, and rest. So we have to be able to identify where I am in that process and give ourselves permission to move through each of those little stages, buckets, whatever you want to consider them: the planning, the action, and the rest. And sometimes not linear. We might bounce around. We might go from rest to action, back to rest, or back to planning. It's not a linear thing, but you do need to be flexible and open to, like, what am I needing in this moment? That is the key. So my first step of the 5 simple steps is you need to have a practice of prioritizing yourself. This one is huge. Just this morning, I've been trying to create some new habits for myself, and I really wanted to kind of squeeze in just moving my body. And I only had 20 minutes, and I thought, but I have 20 minutes, right? I can take that time that I have. I have those 20 minutes, and I can do something that I know is really good for my mind and body, my spirit, my overall wellness. So prioritize yourself. One of the things that's helpful about prioritizing yourself, or is helpful with prioritizing yourself, is practice staying present. So we get so distracted in life, and we can spend too much time worrying about what's going to happen in the future, or too much time lamenting about what's happened in the past. And it just creates a whole bunch of unwanted and really unhelpful negative thoughts and emotions. So I want you to have that practice of staying present, bringing your attention back to this moment, this time, just today. And trying to stay mindful and present really does help us stay grounded. It does help to contribute to us feeling more balanced because we are more in control, not only of our current circumstances, but the outcomes as well. So, in addition to that, prioritizing yourself or how to create that, um, I'll call it a bucket. I call them buckets, but you can conceptualize it in any way. Item, whatever. The prioritizing yourself, understanding your needs and energy. Again, my example of like, I only had 20 minutes, but I had 20 minutes, right? I really know that I'm going to have a long day, long weekend, and I have to feel revitalized and replenished throughout that time. I can't let my energy sink too low or else I'll get depleted. So, finding that time that you can give yourself to either slow down or exercise, move your body, but take some action on what your body is telling you that you are needing. And I think if we have any pain points around taking time for ourselves, about relaxing, about self care, that we probably need to look at. And it is helpful to work with somebody else, whether it's a therapist, a life coach, maybe even just a trusted friend or loved one, to start to soften any of that, because that can really that can hinder us in moving forward and creating that balance. So, one of the parts that I think people often forget, and like I said, it's that balancing of the planning, the action, and the rest, is that rest is still an active part of balance. And so we need to honor our sleep time, our downtime. We need time to integrate and recalibrate our energy, and rest gives that to us, whether it's sleeping or whether it's just, relaxing with a book or painting or going for a walk, whatever it might be. Sometimes it can be more active rest than just sleeping. So I wanted to give you just a couple energy tips for how to prioritize yourself. So one of them that I think is really helpful and that has made a huge difference for me is creating a practice of mindfulness. So that's simply being aware of what you're experiencing in the moment. And it seems simple, and I know sometimes it can be a little complex, but thinking about how can I check in with myself? How can I be aware of what I'm sensing, knowing, feeling? You have to slow down. You have to slow down the mind and the body just a little bit each day so that you can really check in with yourself. If you have never had a practice of mindfulness and want to learn more, there are tons of books. One of my favorites is up on my bookshelf. It's The Now Effect. I think it's really helpful to have guidance if it's an area that you've never tried before, never explored before. Go to an expert, see what they suggest. You don't have to recreate the wheel for that one. With also prioritizing yourself, I want you to think about maybe setting aside a little bit of time for meditation. And if you're new to meditation, it can be as simple as like 3 minutes of stillness, 3 minutes of quiet. You can also do guided meditations. I offer a ton of guided meditations because I know sometimes it's hard to quiet that monkey mind, and you need something that, or someone that's helping you guide through that quiet. You can also try out, this is right up my alley, but trying out activities that help you move your energy. So Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, those are really good examples. Schedule time for Reiki or chakra balancing. That's always a good thing. Another way to prioritize yourself is to take a walk in nature or connect to nature in your own way. So that is my first item of simple steps. Prioritize yourself. Hopefully this isn't something that's brand new to you, but sometimes it can feel like I thought I was doing it, but maybe I wasn't doing it with attention or intention. And so maybe starting to think about how do I create that time within my weekly schedule or even daily schedule to carve out time that's just for me. It's super important to do it, and I know I work, I have kids, I have pets, I have a partner, so I know there's a lot of things, vying our attention, or vying, you know, it wants our attention in all these different areas, but we do have to say that my needs are important as well. So, number 1, prioritize yourself. So, number 2, this one, if you're play cards, you might understand this one, but it's know your tells. So oftentimes we can get into this place where we're starting to feel anxious. It's sort of climbing up this hill, and we don't really realize we're getting anxious or we are anxious until we go over the edge. Or sometimes we're feeling too depleted, and we don't really understand that this is me slowing down until we're on the couch, out for several days. Or we get sick, or we disconnect from people, or we start to go back into old habits, behaviors, patterns that don't serve us. When I worked in substance abuse, we would call these things, our triggers, things that experiences, situations, can be people that create this negative feeling within us, a negative thought, a negative mindset, or an old mindset, an old limiting belief creep in and sort of stagnate our energy, stagnate our ability to not only bring ourselves out into the world, but also to feel grounded and balanced. So, knowing like, what are those things? What are those tells for me? Are there certain phrases that I repeat to myself? Certain actions I take. If your friends and your family could give you some feedback, what would they say? How do they know you're kind of getting into a funk or getting into a bad place or just not in a place where you're feeling really strong? So we want to start thinking about what are our tells and then creating strategies to not only have the awareness that those things are there, but then also how can I move through that? What's a new behavior that's going to support my goal or my desire to have or experience balance? So if you know that you start to think certain thoughts, this is never going to get better, or I can't do this, or I'm different than other people, or it's such a struggle for me, right? Like those would be some negative thoughts. If you have the awareness that, like, oh, that train of thought is happening again, what can we do to combat that? Can we do to lessen that negative impact? So, some examples of tips that I find helpful, I encourage clients to do it. I use it in my own life is to journal. Journal what is the trigger, that what then are the tells, what are those old behaviors, habits, thoughts, whatever it might be, and then create some sort of strategy of like, how can I support that? How can I challenge that if it's a negative thought? So we want to actively replace maybe some of those negative thoughts with something that's a little bit more realistic. So this could be one of those times that you use affirmations. You could go into that place of stillness, of meditation, do a body scan and notice where you're holding any stress or tension. Notice if you have any depletion, if you feel like your emotions are sort of pulling you down. And then you can have that active release of the body. So, stretching the body, moving the body, anything like Reiki again, or even massage, just to get that energy moving and flowing again. So, I think this is a really helpful way to not only recognize our tells, but then also have some strategies to move away from that because we're trying to create new habits, new behaviors. We're trying to implement new, well, instead of limiting beliefs, we want new positive beliefs, more realistic beliefs, more empowering beliefs. So we want to kind of move that needle a little bit. So we have to be a little bit active in that awareness piece again. And then how are we going to create change around this? So that was my number 2 for the simple steps. Know your tells. Number three is an interesting one. Well, they're all probably interesting in some way, shape, or form, but this is one that I see a lot of times with clients. Just sort of scratching their head as why can't I come back to center. Review your goals. That's my number three tip. Review your goals. So I really want, if you have any goals in your life and you feel like you're pushing, trying, you're either in that planning or that action phase, of creating change in your life, hopefully positive change, but creating change in your life, you probably have some goals. They might be things that you sort of think about off the cuff. They might be things that you've actually written down for yourself. But I want you to go back to those and look at the why. Why do I want this thing? Why do I want to achieve this or experience this or manifest this or bring this into my life? Oftentimes, it is the why that needs to be supported as opposed to the goal. So if the why is a little off, so an easy one that I always use is, clients will say, I don't know why, but I can't lose weight. I've been struggling with this all my life and I just can't lose weight. And, we talk about the why. Why do you want to do that? Yeah, because, there's something there. There's something on the surface. I want to be more active or I want to live longer. Well, we all do, right? But why is that important? Well, I want to keep up with my toddler, or I want to model a healthy lifestyle for my kids, or I want to be there for my grandkids, right? Okay, why is that important, right? So we just sort of keep digging into that why. Why is that important for you? If somebody has a simple why of, I want to lose this weight, and the why is something like, because I want to feel better about myself, or I want to love myself more, or I think this might attract a mate, then we're going to have to revise those goals. So, another tip under this strategy is be flexible with your goals. Understand that you might have to revise them, modify them, because you want to support that true goal as opposed to the thing that you just keep pushing and it doesn't seem to stick or work for you. I know this one can be a real challenge, especially when I feel like we get a lot of stuff kind of flung in our face for, comparison or fear of missing out. And so that's how we create our strategies, or that's how we create our goals. But just know it has to resonate for you. It has to be something that like has meaning for you. And so we get to that through the why. And so, a couple different ways I can give you of how you can revise those goals, or at least just look at those goals. Create a vision board. I'm sure you've heard of vision boards. Just activating your intention for your goal. You can work with a practitioner like a life coach, who can assist you in bringing clarity or accountability for your goals. One of the things that I started incorporating into my life about 5 years ago is moving with the moon's lunation cycle. So, tending to your emotions, waiting to see what a new perspective or clarity might arise with a full moon, being able to release anything that's not supporting the goal. And then at the new moons, setting small goals, maybe a new intention for a new habit, new behavior, something that's going to support that thinking pattern experience. But this can be a time that we are going to encourage ourselves, challenge ourselves, be ready to take action, or at least feel more inclined to take action. So if you need something external to support that goal setting, you can always work with something like the moon's lunations. So that is my tip. I feel like goals I could talk for probably an entire hour about goal setting and how to meet your goals. But I know that's probably a conversation for another day. We're going to go back to our simple steps. So, another one that's often challenging is setting boundaries. So, this can have, and that's a big sigh, this can have a lot of different meanings and implications to why we struggle with setting those boundaries. So, one of the things I want you to think about with setting boundaries is practice mindfully saying yes and practice mindfully saying no. Don't just agree to things, don't just say no to things, but know why you might be saying yes to something or no to something. And if this is a new practice and somebody has asked you something, in person, on the phone, via text, whatever, and you're a little leery about it, or it's creating a little bit of tension within you, just put a pause in between what they've asked you and what your response is going to be. And I usually have things that I say that are sort of my natural response, stuff like, that's a great question. Let me get back to you. Or I really want to honor your time and my time. So let me check my calendar, right? So we're not giving them a yes or a no, but it's giving us a little bit of time to check in with ourselves and see, like, is this something that I want to commit to? Is this not something I want to commit to? And then we can go back to them later and say yes or no, right? But that is setting boundaries. That is not just saying yes and overcommitting ourselves, or saying no and feeling like we have to do, something else for someone, or something that we're restricting within ourselves. We want to be open to either one. Either saying yes or no, right? So another way to set boundaries is to check in with yourself and see if the people, including you, though, sometimes it can be you, are honoring or not honoring your boundaries. So for this one, this has a couple steps, some pre-steps, we'll call them. You have to actually know what your boundaries are. You actually have to know, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what are your needs, what are your expectations? That's a huge one. What are your boundaries? What are the parameters, right? And we want to have conversations. And I know this is a hard one, but we want to have open, healthy, clear, productive conversations with the people in our life about our expectations, our needs, and our boundaries. And again, if this isn't something that you've done in the past, working with somebody like a therapist or coach might be helpful, just so you can sort of build that muscle so you're able to do it successfully in your life. But with that boundaries, as we notice, because we'll notice some tension arising either within us or people getting upset with us. One of the really, to me, it's a great strategy to identify this is a boundary issue is to step back and ask yourself, who owns this problem? And if this is not something that you own, if it's something that somebody else is responsible for the solution, you get to take a step back, right? So you can decide, is this something that I need to work on? Is this something they need to work on? Is this something that we need to work on together? Who owns not only the problem, but then who's responsible for the solution? If we can do that, we have to slow down the conversation. We have to check in with ourselves and be aware of our emotions, of our thoughts, of past patterns, probably within relationships. But this gives us clarity as to, like, how do I proceed? How do I reduce the stress I'm feeling and come back to my balance, right? So that's a really important strategy. Another one for setting boundaries, taking time for self-care. So it kind of goes back to number one of prioritizing yourself, but thinking about what is going to support healthy dynamics within the relationship. That's usually taking time for yourself and then taking time for the other person. And it's essential that if we're trying to heal people pleasing, if we're trying to move away from codependency or enmeshed relationships, we really have to start thinking about the balance of boundaries. They're probably a little off, a little open, a little too closed, and that doesn't feel good. So, how do we create those healthy boundaries? This is a big one. Like I said, they're simple steps, but they do require you to be really on top of your game when it comes to aware of what's happening in your life and what you're reacting to, why you're reacting to it, and then how to proceed in a way that feels supportive for you. So I have a couple energy techniques. I use these. I teach clients how to use these when it comes to boundaries, because even though we might be working on healthy boundaries, it doesn't mean that everybody in our circle is going to be working on healthy boundaries. So they might be reactive to us trying to get healthy, to us trying to say, like, yep, nope, there's my line. You just crossed it, right? They want to keep pushing and pushing and get more and more. Hi, Carol. Good evening for you. Good afternoon for me. And so, one of the ways that we can start thinking about um, using a strategy for creating those boundaries is having a practice of preparing or shielding, depending on what your language is, um, our not only our physical self, our emotional self, our mental self, our spiritual self, our energetic self, when we're going to be engaging with challenging people and situations. So this can come in lots of shapes and forms, but having some practice where you're priming yourself, you're prepping yourself, you're preparing for whatever you have to engage, right? And then the bookend to that is having a practice of releasing, of letting go, of cleansing. So if we have those challenging experiences or interactions, how do we let go of them? When we keep them, when we hold them, and they just sit in our energetic or physical, emotional, mental body, it weighs us down, it knocks us off our balance. So we want to have a practice of releasing it as well. And then one of the things that I find really helpful, and again, this is going to be something that you're probably going to want to seek out support, but starting to heal relationship or ancestral or intergenerational trauma with somebody that is trauma informed. So somebody that's not going to create more stress or pain or, create new woundings for you. So a trauma informed therapist, some shamanic practitioners and energy healers are trauma informed. But just know, do a little bit of research, ask some questions, have they worked with this before? What has, their experience been with clients? What have they done for themselves? I think that's important too. It's questions that you can ask, and they get to pick or choose whether they want to answer that. But I think it's important for you to be informed. So that's another way, if like, oh, boundaries, big struggle. But if you want to create balance, one of the simple steps is just really having healthy boundaries. So, working on our last one. Whoo, that was a lot to go over. And if you have questions, I know I'm just trying to rush through them to get through them so we can get to the relaxing part of the Reiki. But if you do have questions, you can always put it into the comment or into the chat. So, my last simple tip for creating inner balance is accessing social support. So, I want you to think about how, if you have, I guess we should say if, not even how, if you have a practice of giving yourself permission for two things: giving yourself permission to ask for help, giving yourself permission to receive help. And we want you to ask and receive from a really healthy support system. Lots to unpack with that. First and foremost, you need to know that you are deserving always of help, and you're always deserving to receive support. So sometimes it can be uncomfortable. We could have, it's usually experiences from our family of origin where it doesn't feel safe to ask for help, or it doesn't feel safe to say that we need help. That it doesn't feel okay for us to be vulnerable. We might have had experiences where it sort of bit us in the butt. And so, once bitten, twice shy, we don't want to put ourselves in that situation again. So it would be helpful to explore the root of, where did this come from? And again, this is something that can be explored with somebody like a therapist. Um, this is this is important to have a social, so I call it a safety net, a social safety net. You need to have a community, you need to have a tribe. We are built for connection. So when we don't have one, there can be a little bit of isolation. That's when depression can set in. And not to say that you have to have a huge group of people, but you have to have people that are reliable people that love you, they care about you, they're compassionate with you. We need people that we trust, essentially, and it can be just a couple people, or it can be, a huge group. It depends on you whether you're introvert or extrovert, really. But you can either build these communities online, in person, whatever feels right for you. But you want to feel physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually safe. That's the key. When you're accessing your support network, you want to feel safe. So have the wisdom, have the discernment of knowing, like, is this something that I can take to, this person, this friend, this colleague, this family member, community member, whatever it might be, or do I feel like that's going to create more stress and worry for me? So just know that you have to discern, like, who is safe and who's not. But if you feel like, I don't really have anyone right now, but I'd like to, set that intention, that I meet those people that are right for me, or that I find that community. You can also tap into, or access, or invite in. You have a sacred support team of spirit guides. You may not be aware of that, or you may be aware of it. It depends on who you are. But you can spend some time in either meditation or stillness in nature, and just connecting, and having that intention for support. Please show me that sign, or point me in the right direction, or show me how I can take this next step confidently, right? We're just asking for some sort of support. So if you don't have that mechanism, it's like, how do I build that up? Well, you can definitely take a spiritual, metaphysical, or energy-based class, so that you can not only expand your knowledge base, but then also build that tribe of other like-minded people. You want to be able to tap into that support system, not only when things are a struggle, but you really want to be able to tap into them for fun and laughter and joy. You want to have just good times with them, right? You want to let go and be free with them. So you want to think about, how also can I reinvigorate myself with using my social support network? It's huge. So, one other energy tip for accessing your social support is to have a practice of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, and as appropriate. You don't need to forgive everybody for things that they've done. You want to use your wisdom, your discernment to determine if that's something that you want to do in your life. But you're always deserving of self forgiveness. So, how do I have that process? How do I make it a practice? How can I connect deeper into that feeling, that emotion, that state, that being of forgiveness? So, one of the ways I have a fabulous, well, in my opinion, I have a fabulous loving kindness meditation. So you can work with something like that, any sort of prayer, or um, I don't know. I say ritual, but you can take it loosely that it's a ritual, but any ritual for forgiveness. So those are my 5 strategies, my 5 simple steps for creating inner balance. Hopefully that was helpful. Again, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, you're free to put them in. And if you want to have, or you need some support, you want to work on any of these things, one-on-one or in group, reach out to me, because I do have support available. I do have one-on-ones. I do have group through my Soul Journey membership. So never feel like you're without support. You can even tap into things in your local area. You can search up, obviously, online, and see what works for you, what makes the most sense for you. So hopefully that is helpful, like I said. And now, because I want you to really think about, okay, so we prioritized ourselves just by attending today, right? We've kind of checked that box off. But now we want to think about a little bit of, like, how can I create that self-care, that loving kindness? Well, if you've never had a Reiki session, Reiki is a fabulous way to tap into that, to experience that. And so I want to invite you to receive today a little bit of a distance Reiki healing. And if you've never experienced Reiki, there's nothing that you have to do other than being open to receiving. You can either acknowledge that for yourself or you can say it out loud. For people that have had Reiki in the past, or have had Reiki with me, I do ask them to set an intention for themselves. I'm going to light a little more sage. So, what are you hoping to receive? What is in this area of inner balance, feels like it needs support or clarity, or what state maybe do you want to be in? I feel like with balance, it can vary. It can vary what I need, what I want. You can always set an intention just to receive for my highest good. It doesn't have to be super specific. Sometimes, I don't know. I can be in such a state where I'm so frazzled. I'm like, I can't even formulate a concept of what I'm needing. Just not this. So you can always just set that simple intention as well. And if you have a candle, you can light a candle. Breathe your intention into that, or see it in the flame, set it into the flame, whatever feels right for you. If you are going to be watching this and having a little bit of a meditative time and space for yourself, you're welcome to listen to music. I do have some music playing. I don't know if you can hear it in the background for myself, but you can have a little bit of music playing. I always encourage people to have more of the instrumental, not a lot of singing, because that can be distracting. But you can also meditate or receive with crystals. So I'm going to use a couple different crystals for today to help us just anchor back in to have that sense of balance. So there is a process I feel like we need to release a little bit so we can make space to receive. So I'm going to just lead you through that process, and we're just going to go actually chakra to chakra, just in that releasing process. I'm going to bring my microphone a little bit closer because I'm going to talk quiet. So if you haven't already, go ahead and get comfortable. Go ahead, set your intention. And I'm just going to set the intention that you receive whatever you're needing to help support balance, whether it's rebalancing yourself after a challenging time, or starting fresh, feeling balanced and inspired. Wherever you're at, the energy will meet you. And we're going to just take a moment to invite in our spirit guides, our Reiki guides, any animal allies, any ascended masters or ancestors, any archangels or goddesses, all to support that process of you coming back to center, of you rebalancing. So if you need to settle the body, settle the mind, just take a couple deep breaths in. And completely exhale. And honoring your wisdom, honoring your body's innate knowledge of what the perfect pace of breath for you is. Just beginning to relax the body, move around if there's any tension or stress, just so you have a little bit more comfort in your day. Just beginning to quiet the mind. We're connecting back to the body, back to our energy, back to our emotions. We're activating our intuition so that we can sense, know, or feel a little bit stronger, a little bit clearer. So without seeking an answer, ask yourself, what has felt off balance in my life? Simply pose the question and allow it to float away. Just like a leaf in a breeze. Just releasing attachment. Activating and accessing your third eye. Pose a new question to yourself. What would be most helpful for me to do to support inner balance? Just one simple step, one simple solution, one simple awareness. We don't have to do it all at once. We can simply choose one. Let that thought, that feeling, that sense, that knowing, let it be felt by all of your essence, all of your energy. Let it be heard and received. Let it integrate. Allow it to begin that healing process so that you can melt away anything that has been a roadblock from creating inner balance or returning to inner balance. Simply allowing the Reiki energy, it has intelligence of its own, to go wherever it needs to clear away any blocks, any stagnant or stuck energy, anything that has felt like a challenge for returning to balance. If you have a practice of releasing stagnant or stuck energy, anything that doesn't serve you, simply allow that energy to flow, to be released. You can release with each exhale. You can imagine it getting smaller and smaller and simply disappearing. Or you can imagine sending it down roots, grounding cords, sending that energy into the earth where it can be transmuted, to be changed into something more positive. Just opening to receiving, being open to asking for help, for receiving support. Might have to do a little bit of clearing in the heart. So in your next inhale, just imagine taking in a deep breath into the heart center, into the heart chakra. And just let love and compassion blot out any pain, unrest. Any resentment or anger. Letting your self-love, your self-care just shine through, opening and expanding that heart chakra. Placing that down. You're always worthy of time just for you. Let's try to rebalance a little bit of the throat and a little bit of the third eye. We want to be really mindful of what we tell ourselves, what we say to ourselves, our thoughts, if they're limiting, negative, hurtful. Try to soften them. It's important to have that awareness to catch ourselves as we're saying those things, as we're thinking those things. Balance is delicate. It's soft, it's nurturing, It's nourishing. It's compassionate. It's not hard or restrictive. It's flexible. Coming back to that place where you can be more loving and compassionate with yourself. You can be forgiving of your mistakes or missteps. Give yourself a little more permission. Be you, to do it your way. Inner balance is knowing your worth, stepping into your personal power, having clear boundaries with yourself and others. Not out of control or spite, not to hurt somebody else, but to uplift and free yourself. Just allowing that to activate within you. What would that feel like or look like if you stepped fully into your personal power? Probably liberating or freeing. And how would that feel? You'd be open again to joy and laughter, to fun and bliss, taking pleasure in everyday life and experiences that are available to you, surrounded by a loving, supportive community. Let's connect the sacral and actually the crown to have that sense of connection. That inner balance, when you have that inner balance, it's like you're light on your feet. You're not stuck in concrete or stuck in mud. You can move with ease. Flow with life. All while knowing that there's a path just for you. Trusting that you'll know exactly where to put your foot for your next step. Taking another deep breath. And on your exhale, releasing again anything that's been standing in your way, stopping you from returning to inner balance. Feeling whole and complete. In your natural state. I'm going to seal that in. I'm going to seal it in with a little bit of sound. Just quiet sound. Just a tiny bit of sound. Extra. So hopefully that was helpful. You need to understand, if you don't know this already, you probably do, but if you don't know this already, coming back to that place of inner balance, it's not necessarily an event, or being in balance isn't an event. It's not a one-time thing. It's a practice. And we have to build that muscle to get back into that practice, or to have a practice if we don't have a practice currently. But then to have that awareness of, like, things are off. I need to put those steps into place to support myself, to support my balance. And hopefully, the 5 simple steps will help you to just have a nice framework. Things to work on is always helpful, I think, to have some sort of direction of, like, what do I need to work on to get there? What do I need to work on to do that? And so the last thing that I'm going to do, well, I'm going to do 2 more things. One, I'm going to give you a little bit of a homework assignment. So I want you to start thinking of, and it doesn't, I always do things in threes. Threes are very magical. It's a very magical number, but you don't have to do it necessarily in threes, whatever works for you. But I want you to start thinking of an area of your life that has not felt balanced. Just one area, not three, just one. But think of, what are 3 things that have kind of knocked it off balance? And what are 3 things that you could do? It could be one of the 5 steps, or one of the little areas within the 5 steps. But what are 3 things that I can do to restore balance to that area of my life? One area of your life, not 3 areas. This can be something that you think about. This could be something that you journal about. You can set that intention with meditation. You can be outside in nature, and just set it for the universe to bring you that answer. So I'm just going to pull a couple oracle cards. If you'd like an oracle card for yourself about what is holding me back from inner balance, you can definitely let me know, and I can pull one specific to you, specific to your need. But I'm going to pull one quick card. And I know there's a little delay on the chat, but if you do want a card, let me know. If you don't, that's fine. It's collective energy, and with anything, take what resonates, leave the rest. But I'm really curious, because this has been an interesting week for me, and I know for a lot of people. But I'm curious about what we need to know about this time in our lives about inner balance. Is there a message we need to know? Is there something that we need to be aware of? Oh, there you go. So how do you find that balance? How do you get back into the flow? Whoops, how do I get this straight in front of the camera? This way, there we go. Oh, I love anything with water. I love anything because it can be so healing, so cleansing, so clearing. But then also knowing that it's a big ask for us to sort of push ourselves away from the shore and allow to just move with the flow of life, to have that trust, that faith that we're going to get to where we need to be, that we're going to have the tools along the way to know which way to go, and then to be open to receiving whatever is also coming down that flow for us. So let's see if there's another message in there for us. Where in our life do we need a little bit of flow? That's an interesting one, because I can think of an area specifically in my life. So it says there is a natural movement of events in the world. You can see it in the phenomenon such as tide, ebb, flow of oceans and rivers that rise up from the earth and then flow to the sea. The symbol of flow represents the endless and natural movement towards a certain destination. It signifies an ability to gracefully move around obstacles and reminds you of the sense of allowing. When flow comes to visit, it's a sign that your intentions have been in motion. Now is a time to allow nature to run its course. You're being called to effortless movements and the path of least resistance. Staying flexible, that's huge. It's like being within music, flowing within partnership. Think of the artist who creates without guile or craft, calling creativity up from the soul and bringing it to life without effort. You are called to be like a river, knowing the fulfillment of destiny is assured. Enjoy the ride. That's key too for creating balance. That fun, that laughter, that joy, it has to be part of our day, our week, our month, our experience. We have to be able to enjoy this. Don't try to push against the river or swim upstream right now. You can trust that when the time is right, your dreams will begin to take shape and you'll be invited to dance with destiny. Right now, however, you must relax. This is not the time to bang on doors that refuse to open. Whatever obstacles in front of you right now, trust that this is for the highest good. It is an opportunity to regroup and reconsider your choices, and you must trust that your intentions will take form in good time. Consider this time a gift. I absolutely love this card. Not only is it a reminder that we can't control everything, it's not healthy to do that, and it's not productive to do that. We have to be able to control what's within, our limits, what we're able to within our life. However, it also is a call to action for trust, for feeling like there's something that's guiding, supporting, or helping me along the way, that I don't have to do it alone. It is tapping into that support network, right? That spiritual support network. But then also that piece of like, remain flexible. Sometimes we're not meant to know why the struggle is here or why we're off balance. Sometimes it's very clear why we're off balance, but sometimes it's not. And knowing that if it feels like I haven't been able to gain traction or haven't been able to rebalance myself, that, when the time is right for us to rebalance, everything will start to flow. Those doors will open, that time will appear, that new idea or that new energy will just seem a little bit more vibrant. And instead of it feeling like a push, it's going to feel like I'm just allowing, I'm just flowing. So I really love this card. It's sort of like that energy that I talked about in all of those areas, of all of those steps, right? Of trying to create or be open to creating inner balance in your life. So I'm going to pull one more card, and I'm actually going to use the animal deck. I really love that connection to animals. And if you know me or see me before, you know that I'm very connected to animals, and I get a lot of my sign synchronicities from animals. And some interesting ones have been popping up for me. So I would love to see, what do we need to know about inner balance? Or maybe even some assistance with that flow. If you're wondering for assistance with that flow and you want to work with an animal ally, maybe dolphin, because that would be fun and playful. And, there is that water element, obviously, but then, very intuitive as well. But then, if you're thinking about any water animal, because with flow, so maybe otter, koi fish. Well, koi would be like abundance and stuff like that. Maybe not shark right now. Unless you're protecting your boundaries, then you might need a little bit of shark energy. Okay, so who is available to us? What do we need to know about that flow? Whoops. Nothing wants to pop out. Okay. It's all right. Oh. Well, there you go. Oops. Know your worth. Skunk spirit. I feel like when we're trying to create that balance, when we're trying to return to balance, when we're trying to recalibrate, the thing that sort of shakes us to our core oftentimes is maybe I'm not worthy of this time by myself, or maybe I'm not worthy of this time that's just for me, or maybe it's not up to me to change the family dynamics or the boundaries. But when we minimize our worth, wonkiness happens, right? We get off kilter, we get off balance. So this is a really good place to start. And again, if you feel like, ooh, this really hits me in an old wound, then you may want to think about working with somebody, whether it's therapist, whether it's life coach, whether it's shamanic practitioner, anybody like that, Reiki practitioner. So let's see a little bit more about this message of skunk. So, what do you value? What do you believe in? In your best, most authentic self? Oh, is your best, most authentic self on display? Skunk Spirit comes as a reminder that you can be proud of who you are and what you've accomplished. Know your worth. Not everyone will agree with you or share your values, but you can walk with your head high, knowing that when you express your integrity, others can feel your authenticity and will be inspired by it. Be who you are, and if your reputation precedes you, good. You have much to be proud of, and Skunk Spirit wants you to be your best self. Oh, the truest you. I love that. I want you to be your best self too. That is like one of the things that I work on with clients every day. How can we become the best version of ourselves? We don't have to be like anybody else. We just have to be like ourselves, but we have to really let that shine out. We have to put that out there to the world in a way that feels safe, but then also that we support, that we protect, that we're able to really be proud of, right? And know worth and value is there and that it's stable. So hopefully this was helpful. If you want any more suggestions or need more support, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, you can always watch this later and put a comment in, and I will reply to you. Otherwise, you can find me on my website, riversjourneywellness.com. I have a couple sales. My birthday's coming up, so I have a birthday sale for the rest of May. And so if you want to check out some of my offerings, you're welcome to do that. But hopefully you're able to take some steps at least towards creating a little bit of inner balance for yourself. So hopefully I will see you soon, and have a fabulous rest of your day.